So Joe Biden has finally authorized the use of American weapons behind the Russian border. Better late than never, Uncle Joey. Better late than never. You know, I was worried after a while. You know, MAGA-ite, Trump, ballsack, gargling Republicans, y'all had me scared for a minute. You did. You know, after gargling Trump's meat, y'all went straight to Putin, and I was concerned. I was worried that the tricks on it that y'all were doing in the meat riding, I was concerned that you were going to completely undo all the gains we had made with Ukraine and all the steps we had taken to defeat Russia. But thankfully, Joe Biden and company have regained sanity, regained momentum, and now we're going to be allowed, now we as in this effort of NATO, Ukraine, the United States, this effort to push Russia back, and now we can finally, now that can commence. So this new rule or this new authorization will allow Ukraine to fire U.S. weapons into the Kharkiv region. Okay, so obviously these weapons aren't going to be flying into the Kremlin or anything like that. However, they will be flying into the Russian border near Kharkiv. Unfortunately, the Russians were able to mount an offensive on that border 30,000 strong, and the Ukrainians weren't able to respond because we hadn't authorized the use of American weapons behind the borderline. Like I said, better late than never. A blunder, an insane blunder, but it's better than MAGA, who would prefer no weapons go at all. So we're gonna have to make do with what we got. But let's see what they got to say.
In another major story we're watching today, there's been a major change in U.S. policy on arming Ukraine, in particular how the weapons that Washington provides are used. For the first time, the White House will allow some U.S. weapons to be used to strike inside Russia. For more on that now, I'm joined by Nick Schifrin. So Nick, tell us, what did the president decide?
For the last 2 years, President Biden has had two goals in Ukraine, not necessarily complementary. One, to try and prevent Russia from taking over Ukraine and therefore send U.S. weapons and money into Ukraine. The second is to avoid direct U.S.-Russia confrontation, and that led him to restrict the use of those U.S. weapons so that Ukraine could not fire them into Russia. But in the last few weeks, some 30,000 Russian troops gathered on the border, bombarded Ukrainian towns like this one in the Kharkiv district, and seized 12 villages around the buffer zone, or what Russia's trying to create is a buffer zone. They've also bombarded Kharkiv city, the second largest city in Ukraine, despite the fact that Ukrainians were watching the Russian troops gather right on the border and launch this attack that everyone knew was coming, and yet Ukraine couldn't use those weapons to try and prevent it. And so a U.S. official confirms tonight, quote, the president recently directed his team to ensure that Ukraine is able to use U.S. supplied weapons for counter-fire purposes in the Kharkiv region so Ukraine can hit back. Kharkiv region is part of this statement. The U.S. official who told me went on to say our policy with respect to prohibiting the use of long-range strikes inside Russia has not changed.
So obviously the whole, you can't blow up Moscow thing, you can't blow up the Kremlin thing, that rule still remains. But, Republicans have sat there and moaned and, complained about, oh my God, we're incensing the conflict. Oh my God, World War III. Oh my God, you're escalating. The Biden administration has held Putin's little hand, because he's like 5'2". They've held Putin's little tiny gremlin hand through this conflict. It's okay, Vladimir, we won't kill you. We have held this man's hand. We withheld the Ukrainians from being able to use American weapons behind the Russian border, which had we used it sooner, we would have been able to cause far greater disarray. And, this invasion probably wouldn't be what it is today. But thankfully, the Biden administration has tried to toe the line as best they could in making sure that we were trying our best to derail Russia's invasion of Ukraine, trying to stop Russia's advancement, trying to stop Russia's aggression, because once Ukraine falls, we know what's next. Possibly even Moldova, maybe even Romania. We don't know what's next, but we know someone's next after Russia, if Russia conquers Ukraine. With that being said, the Biden administration did everything it could to try to do what's in the United States of America's geopolitical interest, which is the military and economic downfall of Russia, removing them from the geopolitical playing field as a rival and as a threat. Trying to do that while simultaneously not incensing Russia into nuclear war. See, Russia, they play a gangster's game. They hold the people of Ukraine's freedom, sovereignty, and peace at gunpoint. What is that gunpoint? It's not just the invasion of Ukraine. It's also the we'll blow up the entire fucking world if y'all don't let us take this land. If y'all don't let us kidnap thousands of their children. If y'all don't let us undo the Ukrainian identity. Vladimir Putin sat there and talked about Ukraine's not really a thing. Ukrainians aren't a real identity. They're not real. They're just Russians. They're just extended family. They're just Russians. They're not really Ukrainians. The undoing of the Ukrainian identity. Russia is trying to accomplish all of those things while holding the West and the rest of the world at nuclear gunpoint. A nation like this has to be stopped. Vladimir Putin, little garden gnome ass, surrounded by all these little niggas in the Kremlin, he got to sit 30 feet away from, but before they put hands on him. Him and the rest of them goons, they are threatening the stability of the world if they don't get what they want. If they don't undo this, if they don't get exactly what they want in this war, they will undo the entire fucking world. And how we know Russia is so unbelievably unreasonable and irrational is the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, constantly threatens everyone with a nuclear war every single month. Don't believe me? Look it up. Now, I want you to imagine something for me, okay? I want you to imagine Barack Hussein Obama, George Bush, even Donald Trump, as crazy as he is. I want you to imagine former American presidents. We'll even bring in Clinton, just for the sake of it. Imagine if any of these gentlemen went on the internet and threatened to blow up the world if we couldn't get what we wanted. As powerful as a nation as we are, we've never done that. Not a single former American president, or even current American president, has ever threatened the world in any such a way. Ever. And yet here we are dealing with a terroristic gangster Russian state. This war in Ukraine is pivotal. Vladimir Putin and his goons cannot be allowed to have further control over Russia by the end of this fucking century. Okay, he'll be dead by the end of the century, but still, the legacy of his leadership, this has to end. This has to go. Unfortunately, Prigozhin couldn't do the job, so now we got to clean up where he left off, but this has to stop. Joe Biden, the administration, good job. Late. Not going to sit here and act like this wasn't late as hell. Good job. Late. But this is what it's going to take to act in the United States of America's best interest. It is. This is what's in our best interest, by far. No doubt about it. Russia needs to be removed from the geopolitical playing field. 10 times out of 10 times. And this is the best way that we can do it without blowing up the entire fucking world. We cannot allow them to hold the world at nuclear gunpoint. That is not acceptable. And unfortunately, MAGA-ite Republicans did a very good job of telling the Russians, as long as you threaten to blow everyone up, we'll do exactly what you tell us to do. We'll let you take all of Europe as long as you don't blow the entire world up. So, you know, the reality of the situation is this is what needs to be done. Hopefully, we can up the ante and get more aggressive and allow strikes further into Russia, even more strikes, even more weaponry, even more ammo, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Republicans derailed a lot of necessary progress for months and months and months, and then folded after getting a briefing because they're. So we'll see what happens. You know, we'll see exactly what happens. W Biden, W Kamala, W Democrat. I'm Gen Z. I get my W's out, but let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm out.